Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Darrell Owens, and we are back for another edition of One on One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network, and of course, airing on the amazing Bowie Television. This, ladies and gentlemen, episode 194, and of course, our power rankings coming up for week 16, heading into week 16 of the NFL season. That means we only got 3 games left before the playoffs start. And once again, another season has flown by, but it's been a fun one. And just excited to see where it lands up. We know that we will get a new AFC champion this year. We know that for a fact because the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs were eliminated from the playoffs. So that's something we know. We've got some good battles going on for the top seed in the NFC and in the AFC. There's a lot going on in these last couple of weeks. A lot will be determined. Who's going to get the buys? Tonight, a big game to decide that potentially in the NFC. The winner of this game will be the 1 seed, at least heading into next week. So if the Seahawks can win at home, they'll be the 1 seed heading into next week. If the Rams win, they will continue to be the 1 seed. So big game tonight in Seattle. Huge game tonight in Seattle. With that being said, let's get it going. Episode 194 of One on One shall begin now. One, 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 one. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to One-on-One at Legacy Maker Sports Network. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Episode 194, 101, starting now on the Legacy Maker Sports Network, and of course, airing on the amazing Bowie Television. With that being said, we just want to thank everybody for coming in. Before I even get into the outside looking in and the bottom and the top 10, the finale, all that good stuff, I want to give a shout out to everybody that gave me some birthday love on the sexiest day of the year on December the 15th. So thank you all. And I know I said it the other day in a video, but I want to say it again. You guys do not know how much I do appreciate everybody out there. I do love y'all. I may not get a chance to say it every day. You may not think I do, but I promise you that I do. And that's all I can really say about that. So I take every compliment, every birthday love that I got very serious. So I just gonna say that, get it out the way, and thank you all for making the 41st edition of the sexiest day of the year a special one. Now, with that being said, we can go ahead and get into all the fun stuff. Big game tonight, Seahawks and Rams. Big one. If the Rams win, I'm not gonna say they essentially win the NFC West, but it puts them in a really good spot. Essentially will give them a 3-game lead because one, they've beat the Seahawks already in a really close matchup where it didn't look like Seattle hung in that game and it just didn't look good for them, and they still had a chance to win it. That's how crazy it was. So we'll see. We'll kind of see what happens in tonight's game. And then we got a couple of got some bangers this weekend. Packers Bears on Saturday night. I believe we got Ravens and Patriots on Sunday Night Football. We got Buccaneers and Panthers. That's gonna be a huge one because of everything that entails. Like right now, it's 7-7 in that division. The winner is going to take the lead in the division, but that division is far from being over because they play twice. So they play twice. They play again at the end of the season, and the way I think it's going to end up going, as long as the cards play right, we'll see either that matchup and maybe potentially the Ravens, Steelers matchup be a for the championship type of deal. So that we got a lot brewing. In these next couple of weeks. So with that being said, and I've said with that being said enough. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's get into the bottom. All right. The bottom, ladies and gentlemen, for week 16 of the NFL season. Staying freshly at the bottom, number 32, the Tennessee Titans. You know, Tennessee went up against a 49ers team that I'm going to say this, and I'll talk more about it when we get to them in this power ranking. But the 49ers team is quietly going to be a problem in the NFC. Right now, they're currently a 6 seed, but they're going to be a problem. But talking about the Tennessee Titans, losing 37-24, and, solid, maybe not the greatest game for Cam Ward, but 18 for 29, 2 touchdowns, 170 yards. But he didn't, throw the ball away, which is a pretty good thing. And I'll say it, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. The Titans team, one, they need to, first of all, they got to find a good coach. That's going to be the first objective in the offseason. But secondly, they just got to get talent around this man. They've got to get talent, a talented play caller, whatever. It all needs to happen for Tennessee. And, we'll see where they land. Right now, they have a top 3 pick in the draft if it was to happen today. I think they're sitting at, no, actually, I take that back. Yeah, I think they're sitting at they might be at number 3 right now, but they're in the mix. At number 31, the Raiders, the Vegas Raiders. Look, if they hadn't beaten the Titans early in the season, the Raiders in my book could probably be the easily the worst team in football. But they're right there with the Titans, and they beat the Titans, so they get that advantage, and they beat the Patriots. So, and that was obviously a Patriots team still trying to figure out who they were going to be, but they did beat the Patriots. So you got to give them that much credit. Not a lot of teams can say they beat the Patriots this year, but the Raiders are it's rough, and they got shellacked. They just beat up 31-0. A second week in a row that we had a 31-0 shutout. And last week it was Minnesota beating up on the Commanders 31-0. This week it's the Eagles beating up on the Raiders 31-0. They've got a lot they've got to figure out. Tons. What's the quarterback position going to look like? They had, old Kenny Pickett back there, and they've got a lot of decisions to make. The Heisman Trophy window, Fernando Mendez. I could be saying that wrong, but the Heisman winner from Indiana. He's going to be the guy that a lot of people are screaming that could be the number 1 pick in this draft, at least quarterback front. We'll see. At 30, the New York Football Giants had a chance to go up to Jersey, over there to MetLife last week to get a chance to see this Giants team take on the Commanders, and we finally saw at least one losing streak come to an end. So the Commanders finally get a win. It's been a really tough road. And the last time the Commanders won was October the 5th. The last time that the Giants had won have been October the 9th. So both teams were sporting strong 7 to 8 game losing streaks. And so, the Commanders were able to do what they need to do to get the win. I saw some bright spots in that Giants team. Shout out to Tyrone Tracy. Some of the pictures that I took at the game, he supported, and I want to give him a shout out. Thank you for that on the behalf of Bowie Television. So shout out to Tyrone Tracy for the love from the Giants. Also, got to give shout out to all of my people from, the Commanders that are always giving love. Jordan McGee each week, the Brandon Comans, the Chris Rodriguez's of the world. I want to thank you all for showing love, and there's more, but I'll be talking about that all day. But the Giants are at 30, and they've also right now they actually currently have the first pick of the draft if it ended today. So there's a lot to be done here in the next couple of weeks. At 29, the other team from New York, the New York Football Jets. Man, the Jets. I don't know what I can say about them other than they're in really bad place. They're in a really bad place. You have both of your 1 and 2 quarterback out, and Brady Cook, I believe, has been the quarterback the last couple of weeks, and it's just it was the quarterback last week, will be the quarterback again this week. It's just not good, y'all. It's bad. They got demolished by the Jaguars. I mean, we saw Trevor Lawrence just go to work. 330 yards, 2 for 20 for 32, 5 touchdowns. Cook in his, starting debut per se, 22 for 33, one touchdown, three picks, and it just wasn't a good day. And they're another team that they don't have the talent offensively. They had some pieces defensively. It's going to be a complete rebuild over the next couple of years for the Jets. And all I asked the Jets, and I said it on every show, give Aaron Glenn a chance. That's all I say. Just don't try to fire him after this year. Give him at least a couple years to try to figure this thing out. That's all I'm asking. At 28, the Arizona Cardinals, another team that at some points this year showed some spunk, but they've had some games where they've been beat up. We saw the Rams beat up on them. They've taken a lot of tough losses. They lose to the Texans this past week, 40-20. The Rams beat them 45-17. The 49ers beat them 41-22. The Seahawks beat them 44-22. I mean, they've taken some beatings this year. It's been a rough year for the Arizona Cardinals. Their quarterback situation is nothing to be desired. We don't know what that's going to be next year. We don't know if they're going to try to trade Kyler Murray. That's what it seems like, but they just paid him big time. But there will be a market for Kyler Murray. So don't be surprised what Arizona does there. At 27, the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland coming off of a tough loss to the Bears. Saw some good moments from Shedeur Sanders, but it still was a tough go. He had 3 interceptions on the day, and it's still a young quarterback learning. He probably threw some passes he shouldn't have thrown. That was a great pass he threw to Judy that just got stolen from him by Jalen Johnson. He just took it out of his hands. And there's moments you see Sanders do some good stuff, but then you also see him revert to something that I think he has to fix at this level. And it's he's trying to make a play, and he tends to trail back, and he goes further and further behind. That's something I don't like to see from him. But he's such a good young quarterback, and I think that in the right situation, he could be really good. And I know people hate on him for his dad, and they think he's arrogant, but no one says the same thing about other quarterbacks. So I'm gonna let that be. But the Browns are at 27. At 26, the New Orleans Saints. Saints with a big win against the Panthers, giving them back-to-back wins. They beat the Buccaneers last week. They beat the Panthers this week, and they beat the Falcons. So this Saints team, they have won a game against every team in the division, even when people like myself said they would barely win this year. And I'm be honest with you, I'm pleasantly surprised. But they also, division games are division games, and I think people looked past the Saints in those division games, and you just can't do that. They were able to figure things out. So the Saints get a win over the Panthers, stopping the Panthers' chances of taking the division lead last week, and probably putting the Panthers in a really good spot if they could have won this week. But we will see. We'll see. At 25, the Commanders finally ending the 8-game losing streak. It was rough. I was there for all of it, except for maybe the Dolphins game. It just wasn't pretty, y'all. Just wasn't pretty, and it was nice to see them get a win. Marcus Mariota had a solid day. Jalen Lane with the kickoff return. Terry being Terry with a big catch. We saw, Big Senate get a nice little play or two. The defense had some good moments. Mikey Sarah still had an interception. So it was good to kind of see them win again, and it's been a really rough year for the Commanders and the fans. Jaden Daniels has been shut down for the year. He will not be back until next season, which I think is the right move. I said I didn't think I would have brought him back against Minnesota just to let him heal, and I think that was DQ trying to just give him an opportunity to, one more shot at it. And when he got bumped that last time, he's like, look, you can't risk it. DQ still would rather have him play, I think, just based off of what my colleague Candy Waller, and we had a conversation about that, and you can just the vibe it. You can kind of feel maybe that he's still some things that may have said it. Maybe he still wants to play, but smartly, I believe they are letting him sit. And they've got the Eagles this week, big division matchup for them. The Eagles, if they win, they get into the playoffs. So a lot going on in Washington, or AKA Landover, Maryland, this weekend. At 24, the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, I thought maybe a couple of weeks ago after they beat the Ravens that, hey, who knows, man, maybe Cincinnati does some good things. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen this past weekend, and we saw a team that just didn't have it in them, and the Ravens got their payback, winning 24-0. And then you heard Joe Burrow make those comments about, where his mindset is in the game right now. And if you're a Bengals fan, I'd be worried, like a lot of it. So At 23, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons got a nice win on Thursday night, 29-28 over the Buccaneers. And the NFC South has just been a dogfight somehow, even with bad teams in it. Like the Falcons technically and the Saints have been eliminated, but they were technically in the mix up until last week. It's insane. But the Falcons get a nice win. Kirk Cousins come in there. Kyle Pitts, 3 touchdowns on the day. He was great. So shout out to the Falcons, a much needed win. At 22, the Miami Dolphins. They lose to the Steelers 28-15 on Monday on the sexiest day of the year. It's unfortunately it wasn't sexy for them, but they lose, and now we're hearing that, or now that we know, I should say, that it will be the Quinn Ewers show for the rest of the season, at least currently at the rest of the season, as they have benched Tua. Tua is going to be the emergency quarterback, and it's very interesting because I did not see that being the case, but he will be the emergency quarterback, and Ewers will get the start. Wow, Miami, and here's the thing: they were able to get back in the mix, and it just when they needed to win the most, they couldn't get it. At 21, the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings on a nice little streak here. Vikings have won a couple games in a row, and now they sit themselves 6-8. Now they have been eliminated from the playoffs, but they have a chance to finish strong here. And they got the Giants this week, so they can move to 7-8 if they can beat the Giants, and that'll be in New York, or Jersey, I should say. It'll be fun to see if JJ McCarthy can continue to have some, put some good, solid games together because they were ready to get this man out of town. So let's see if they can continue to put solid games together. So there it is, the bottom: Titans, Raiders, Giants, Jets, Cardinals, Browns, Saints, Commanders, Bengals, Falcons, Dolphins, and at number 21, the Minnesota Vikings. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. The bottom. Well, we know that all those teams in the bottom are not making the playoffs. So they are all been officially eliminated and will play spoiler for the rest of the season. With that being said, let's go to the outside looking in because there's some playoff teams in that mix. Right. Here we go. The outside looking in. At number 20, the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that has officially been eliminated from the playoffs. With that being said, the Chiefs will not be the AFC champions this year for the second or third or fourth straight year in a row. We will have a new AFC champion for the first time since the 2021 season when the Cincinnati Bengals won the AFC championship. So AFC wild card playoffs, so all that fun stuff is going to be fun because it could go to anybody. I think it's wide open. We'll get into more of that a little bit later. Bad news for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes done for the season with a torn ACL. I think the MCL is messed up as well as the LCL. Just a bad way for things to go for a rough season for the Kansas City Chiefs. We may have seen the last time that Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes play on the same team together. At number 19, the Dallas Cowboys, 6-7-1. Very disappointing for Dallas. They needed that win against the Vikings. They're still in the playoffs. They still can somehow win the NFC East. But they put a really big dent in their playoff chances with that loss to Minnesota. They needed that win. Minnesota winning 34-26. It was just a huge win for them. And Dallas has got to figure some things out. Like they have to find a way to go and beat this Chargers team who are also looking to try to win their division. They're going to try to catch the Broncos, and their chances are getting slim. So it's a big game for both teams. It's going to have a playoff atmosphere in Dallas. At 18 and 17, we're talking about the Carolina Panthers at 17 and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 18. These two teams face off this week, and it's going to be huge. It's going to put this team in the driver's seat if they can win this week with 2 games to go. And they still do face each other, but it'll put this team in a good position no matter what the outcome, and we'll see who can win the NFC South. Will it be the Buccaneers or will it be the Panthers? At number 16, the Baltimore Ravens. They get a much-needed win this past week against the Bengals, winning 24-0. They had to have it. With the Steelers winning that game against them about a week or so ago, they had to have it because they have to keep pace with Pittsburgh because they face each other at the end of the season, and that game could determine who wins the division, depending on. But the Ravens have to win against the Packers, potentially, and they have to win against the Patriots, that's the Sunday night game. They have to win both of those to try to make that happen. That's where it gets a little bit complicated. So we're going to see what ends up happening there. At 15, the Phillip Rivers led Indianapolis Colts. Shout out to Phillip Rivers. He had them in that game against the Seahawks. He had drove him down the field. They got the field goal. They had a 16-15 lead with a few, like a minute and some change left in the clock, I believe. And then, we see Phillip Rivers unfortunately had to sit in the sideline and watch Sam Darnold and the crew go down the field, get in the field goal range, and win the game 18-16. But shout out to Phillip Rivers, man. 5 years, hadn't been in the league in 5 years, goes 18 for 27, 120 yards, not big numbers, but he still threw a touchdown. He had a pick in the game. But I feel like the version that you get of Phillip Rivers this week is going to be better because he's going to have a full week and a game in the books back, and then he's going to have a whole another week of practice. And then by the time they get to the game this week, I feel like, anything can go. And they got the 49ers. Not saying that's an easy game by far, but they've got a shot. They've got a shot. The Colts have to figure it out, man. They were sitting at the top of the AFC a couple of weeks ago, and now they're fighting for their playoff lives. At 14, the Pittsburgh Steelers. 8-6, get the win against the Dolphins. Rodgers and crew, if they can just find a way to get into the playoffs, they're closer and closer. The Ravens lose this week, and the Steelers win. They're going to be in a really good place with 2 weeks to go. At 13, the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are a team that are on the cusp of being eliminated. They're not there yet, but they're still in the mix. They still can get in the playoffs. Some things have to go their way. All right. I think maybe the Packers are going to have to lose the last 3 games, and then 49ers so they're not out of it yet. They're still hanging in, but what a turn of events it would be if the Detroit Lions do not get in the playoffs this year, because I thought they would come back a little strong, maybe not win it, be as good as they were last year, but definitely be in there. So we've got a lot to find out with them, and I want to know how that goes down. But they got a big matchup against Pittsburgh this week, so both teams are going to be jockeying to put themselves in good position heading into Week 17. At number 12, the Houston Texans. Shout out to the Houston Texans, y'all. They have done nothing but win, win, win. And they have been one of those teams that have continued to win despite everything, despite a miserable start to the season. Houston has bounced back. And we saw a team that started this season off in dire straits, losing to the Vikings, losing to the that was in preseason, losing to the Rams, losing to the Buccaneers, losing to the Jaguars, then finally getting their first win against the Titans, and then beating the Ravens. So they go to 2-3. They lose to the Seahawks. They're 2-4. Then they beat the 49ers. They're 3-4. They lose to the Broncos. They're 3-5. So their last loss was November the 2nd. Since then, they've beaten the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bills, the Colts, the Chiefs, and the Cardinals. They're sitting at a 6-game winning streak with the Raiders coming into town. So they can kind of pad it a little bit, hope that the Jaguars lose, because then the Jaguars lose, that puts them in contention to potentially win this division when it didn't look like they had a chance. So shout out to D'Amico Ryan and the crew. Ryan's and the crew, they could have easily gave up after that rough start. They're still in it. The Houston Texans, undercover team in the NFL right now. Number 1 defense. No one's talking about them. Them and the 49ers, 2 teams to watch out. Shout out to Pop Waller. But those are the 2 teams. At number 11, the Philadelphia Eagles. Nice win over the Raiders. Do what they're supposed to do. Look good for Hard Knocks. The outside looking in for now. And yes, they've beat a couple teams in that top 10, but I'm not 100% on that offense right now. That's my reason why I don't have them in the top 10. But watch out for them, because if they get hot, they're going to be a problem, of course. Here it is, outside looking in. Chiefs, Cowboys, Buccaneers, Panthers, Ravens, Colts, Steelers, Lions, Texans, and at number 11, the Philadelphia Eagles. Outside looking in is looking good. We got teams in the mix. Everybody in the outside looking in, still in the playoff hunt, minus the Kansas City Chiefs, who were officially eliminated this past week. So anything could go. This weekend, huge weekend, a lot of games that have playoff implications. So we're going to find out who can push through in the outside looking in, who maybe one of them jump into the top 10 next week. We don't know, but we shall see. With that being said, let's get to the top 10. Top 10. At number 10, the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay loses a tough 34-26 matchup to the number one team in our power rankings, the Denver Broncos. It was a good game. Green Bay had the lead. They were in a good spot. They were toe-to-toe with this team, and then it happened. Michael Parsons tears his ACL. He's done for the season. Jordan Love throws a pick. It just didn't go well. Just small things. And that's why I continue to say this team is good enough to be – they could be a Super Bowl team. They find ways every couple of weeks to be like, man, really? The Packers were on a nice little streak. I think they had won like 4 in a row before losing this one. So now they take a step back. They got a big game against Chicago in Chicago on Saturday night. It is going to be a doozy for both teams, and it'll put Chicago in a really good place if they can get the win and have the Packers fighting if they want to still try to win that division. So it's a big game. Really big game, but we shall see. Now, at number 9, the San Francisco 49ers. Now, San Francisco still in the mix in the NFC West. They're only a game back. And if the Seahawks or the Rams slip, we could be talking about the 49ers as a 1 seed or as a 2. That's how tight it is in the NFC right now. There's a lot of teams in that mix. The Rams, the Packers, the 49ers, and the Rams, Packers, the 49ers, and the Seahawks all have a chance, and the Bears have a chance to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And these next couple of weeks are going to prove a lot, and a lot of things can happen. But the 49ers looking good. They're undercover good. No one's talking about them, but they've won 10 games this year. And if you're a 49ers fan, you got to love that. At 8, we got the Chargers, probably the weirdest 10-4 team in here. It's just something about them from week to week. You just never know what you're going to get from the Chargers. But they are 10-4. They did pick up a dub last week. And so, and a big one against Kansas City, eliminating them from the playoffs, sweeping the Chiefs, which is also a nice little feat. So shout out to Jim Harbaugh and the squad. At number 7, the Chicago Bears. Chicago bouncing back, getting the win over the Browns, 31-3. Caleb Williams look good. The Bears look good. And they have a chance to find, extend that lead in the division this week and put themselves in the driver's seats to win the NFC North. At number 6, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville, another team that is continuing to do some really good stuff. Like it's a really nice thing to see. And Jacksonville is a team that I had, being the 7th seed. I didn't know they would be the 3 seed there, but that still could happen there. But they're still in position to win this division. And so the AFC is going to be wide open. Anything can happen, y'all. Anything can happen. At number 5, the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo gets a nice win over our former number 1 team in the power ranking, the New England Patriots, 35-31 in New England. Big road win and a game that they absolutely needed if they want to win that division. So that is also going to be something that we watch out for, another division that's going to come down to the wire here in the next couple of weeks. At number 4, of course, the New England Patriots. I'm still going to give them the nod over Buffalo because the Patriots are on a 10-game winning streak before this loss. And so I'm not going to do that. And the Patriots have been pretty consistent this year. And I don't want to take that path. I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt. At number 3, the Seattle Seahawks, who are another team that has just been rolling right along so far this season. I like what they do. They're another quiet team. I don't know if they have enough to make the real push. They have a really good defense. We're going to find out. Mike McDonald and the crew, I have nothing but faith in his defensive coaching abilities. We shall see. At number 2, the LA Rams. They were my pick to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. So until they are no longer in the mix, that's my pick. We'll see how it goes. And at number 1, for I believe the 4th time this season, the Denver Broncos. So the Denver Broncos take the top spot in our power rankings for week number 16. That is the Packers, the 49ers, Chargers, Bears, Jags, Bills, Patriots. Seahawks, Rams, and at number 1, the Denver Broncos. Shout out to my guy, Nick Higgs. I love you, brother. I know you up there smiling, looking at your Broncos in the lead. And every time I see them play, even this week when they played against us, all I could think about was you. And I know you're happy that your boys are doing well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to the finale. All right, the finale for this week. First, our Kings of the Gridiron for week number 15. Our offensive king of the gridiron, Trevor Lawrence, 20 for 32, 330 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, and a QBR of 136.7 in a 48-20 win over the New York Jets. On the defensive side, we say in the AFC with Matt Milano, 10 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble in a 35-31 win versus the New England Patriots. Big wins for these teams, much needed wins, putting themselves in great shape as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Heading to the MVP race, I still got your boy Matt Stafford at number 1, Drake May at number 2, Josh Allen at 3, Myles Garrett for the season he's having on the defensive side of the ball. It's hard for me to look past that. The guy is 2 sacks away from getting the all-time record. He's going to push for it. We're rooting for him. And so he deserves at least MVP status, in my opinion, for that, even though the Browns are where they are. But he's one man. He can only do what he can do. At number 5, Jordan Love. Despite the tough week, I'll still give him a little bit of a bump. But there's some guys that are on his heels. Jackson Smith and the Jigba, guys like that are hanging in. So Mr. Love better get his act together. Now, if the playoffs started today, the Broncos will be the 1 seed in the AFC. The number 2 seed, New England Patriots, will take on the number 7 seed, Houston Texans, which I'll be honest with you, Houston could win that game. It would be a big upset, but they could definitely win that game. At number 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Buffalo Bills. Another fun one, but I would favor the Bills in that matchup, but it would be a fun one. But Jacksonville's also had some really good success, or some decent success, I should say, against Buffalo in the last couple of years. In the last couple of times I think they played them. At number 4, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the number 5 seed San Diego Chargers, a.k.a. the LA Chargers. I don't know how that matchup will go. But with Aaron Rodgers under the helm, I mean, despite his playoff woes, I wouldn't put things past him. Now, head to the NFC, number 1 seed, the LA Chargers. The number 2 seed, Chicago Bears, will take on the number 7 seed, Green Bay Packers. Something I do not want to see in the first round of the playoffs, if they can help it. If they can help it. But, you got to face whoever you got to face when the playoffs come. You can't really control as long as you're in the mix. At number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles would take on the number 6 seed, San Francisco 49ers, which would be a fun matchup in a rematch of the NFC Championship game from a few years back. And then the number 4 seed, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are hanging on by a string, will take on the number 5 seed, Seattle Seahawks. That's it. The playoffs started today. Now let's look at your boy record. Tough go the last 2 weeks. I had been on a real good high, and I had put my expectations to go out there and try to get the 200 wins. I knew that wasn't going to happen, but I still want to get to a point where I can have more. I think I need to win 33 games over the next 3 weeks. So I had to average 11 wins in the next 3 weeks in order to beat my last year's record. It's going to be close, y'all. Let's just say that it's going to be real close. We'll see. But 138, 85, and 1 so far on this season. And then heading to tonight's game, I got the Rams beating the Seahawks 30-26. This game can go either way. Your boy record on Thursday football this year, 10-7. I feel like that should be a better record. Some games really surprised me this year. Last week's game surprised me. So we'll see if the Seahawks continue that and put your boy at 10-8, which I don't want heading into week 17. Now, last but not least, who wins this week? I got the Rams, the Eagles, the Packers. That's right. I picked them all year. Maybe I think except for once. The Saints, the Bills, the Titans. I got the Titans getting a win this week. The Chargers, the Vikings, the Panthers, the Bengals, the Jaguars, Falcons, Texans, Lions, Ravens, and last but not least, the San Francisco 49ers. And those are my winners heading into week 16. Now, your boy has been wrong before, a lot, as you can tell by my record. 85 times to be exact this year, maybe 86 if you count the tie. But very excited for week 16. Got a lot going down, a lot of big matchups. It's going to be a fun weekend of football. I'm heading up to Washington, or AKA Landover, I should say, or heading to Landover, Maryland for the Eagles and the Commanders. It's going to be a big game. It's going to be a big game. And so we're going to see who can pull it off. And you know, it's a big game more for the Eagles than it is for Washington. But Washington, they're in spoiler mode. You know, Von Miller said the other day, he's like, I'm taking people down with me. So they know they're not making the playoffs. They're here to ruin people's playoffs opportunities. So Eagles, Cowboys, watch out. They're here to ruin one of y'all's dreams in the next couple of weeks. Once again, everybody, thank you all for tuning in. Episode 194 of 101 in the books. Can't wait to see you all next week for episode I lost my train of thought. Episode 195. Now, 195 is going to come to you a little bit early because it'll be around like 11, maybe like noonish. I haven't decided the time yet, but it'll be between 11:30 and noon because I have to hit the road to head I had to hit the road on Christmas Day for the Cowboys and the Commanders. So it will come to you just a little bit early to preview those games as well as the rest of the games for week 17. Once again, everybody, I'm Darrell Owens, Legacy Maker Sports Network. Of course, this airing on the amazing Bowie Television. I'd like to thank you all for being a part of the show. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate y'all. Thank you once again for all the birthday love, all the sexiest day of the year love that I got this past week. Well, with that being said, thank you all. Thank you. We'll see you all on Christmas Day for episode 195. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you all next time.
Welcome to the 101. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof.